Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy Edit. Today's video, we're going to be talking about some second-year breakouts for fantasy football in 2021. I'm going to be discussing 5 players, 2 running backs, 2 wideouts, and 1 quarterback from the 2020 NFL draft class that I feel as though are going to take that big leap in their sophomore year at the NFL level for fantasy football in 2021. But before I get into the breakdown of these 5 players, I'd like to ask if you do end up enjoying this video at any point to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, us at Awesemo are going to be putting out videos every single day to help you guys win that 2021 fantasy football championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new or not, please consider hitting the like button to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to, before I get into it, give a huge shout out to all of the guys at Awesemo for giving me this opportunity to work here. This is going to be my first video on this channel. Some of you guys may be redirected from my personal YouTube channel, so thank you guys for coming. But if you are new to me, you can follow me on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. I'm going to be here for the long haul, so hopefully you guys do end up enjoying my content as well as the other content that's going to be posted on this channel. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first player I want to be talking about today is a running back, but the actual first player I wanted to be talking about today was running back Cam Akers of the Los Angeles Rams. The report was today that he ends up tearing his Achilles and he is going to miss the whole 2021 NFL season. A very somber thing to be reading before training camp even ends up starting. Normally, during training camp, injuries happen and you're like, you know what? It's not that surprising when things happen during training camp. Guys get hurt all the time. But when you see someone get hurt before training camp even begins, it hurts just a little bit more, at least in my opinion. That's going to move up Darrell Henderson a little bit, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is talking about second-year players, and the first one to be discussing is running back of the Baltimore Ravens, J.K. Dobbins. In 15 games last year, Mr. Dobbins finished as the running back 24 in PPR, 21 in half PPR, and the RB 17 in standard, averaging 11.2 PPR points per game, 10.6 half PPR points per game, and 10 standard points per game, meaning from a points per game perspective, Dobbins was the running back 33 in PPR, 30 in half PPR, and the running back 28 in standard, tied with James Conner. Now, going into last year, this Baltimore Ravens backfield was cluttered, and cluttered is definitely the perfect word to describe it. It was a 3-headed backfield scenario like a dragon you would see in one of those fairy tales, because it was Mark Ingram, it was Gus Edwards, and it was J.K. Dobbins. Mark Ingram was coming off a heater of a season in 2019, so you just knew he was going to take away workload from the rookie out of the Ohio State in J.K. Dobbins. So we don't see J.K. Dobbins for a lot of the beginning of the season. He's kind of just getting rolled around in this backfield until they eventually realized that Mark Ingram just really isn't all that good, and the reason why he had so much success was because of the system he is in Baltimore, because the Baltimore Ravens are one of those teams that you would not be surprised if they finished at the year as the team that ran the ball the most, because of Lamar Jackson, as well as the scheme that they run there in Baltimore to make sure that the running backs get the ball. So last year, he did play very, very well when he was given the opportunity, but at the end of the year, his finish was pretty much a wash. With the upside that he had going into last year, it was somewhat disappointing, but at the end of the day, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel in 2021 with the upside he has, because again, like I was saying, this is a team that really likes to run the rock. They get rid of Mark Ingram, so now it's just J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and there's a lot more opportunity here for J.K. Dobbins. Last season, Mr. Dobbins put up 134 carries, 8.9 per game, ranking 33rd at running back. He had 805 rushing yards, 16th highest at running back, and he also put up 24 targets for 18 receptions, 120 receiving yards, and 9 total touchdowns at the end of the season, ranking 16th highest at the running back position. Now, while none of those numbers are super special, you can kind of take them and throw them a bit out the window. J.K. Dobbins was a guy at the collegiate level at the Ohio State that has very solid hands, but he wasn't given all that many targets in his rookie season. I believe now, with the fact that he's going to be a sophomore, with the fact that he moves up the depth chart to be the #1 overall guy in this team, that he is going to be given a lot of opportunity to be touching the ball, whether that is rushing or catching dump-offs from Lamar Jackson. It seems to me that a lot of people in the fantasy football space are really discrediting J.K. Dobbins and are letting him fall too far in drafts. I'm seeing it become more and more normal that J.K. Dobbins is a third-round pick instead of a second-round pick, and I think that that is the sweet spot to be taking him inside of the third round. I would be very happy to have a running back on a team that is going to be running the ball as much as the Baltimore Ravens in the third round, who definitely has top 12 potential, especially if he is getting a lot of pass-catching opportunity in 2021. Next player I want to be talking about today is wide receiver of the Denver Broncos, Jerry Jeudy. Now, Jerry Jeudy was put into a situation last year which seemed perfect for a rookie wide receiver. He was going to be the perfect number 2, sitting behind Courtland Sutton, and that was going to give him some time to develop, and then maybe deeper down the stretch of the season, we would see a great showing out of Jerry Jeudy. But week 1, Courtland Sutton basically was gone. He was finito. He ended up getting hurt out for the season. So then Jerry Jeudy goes from being the clear wide receiver 2 on this team to being elevated to being the wide receiver 1, seeing the best coverage that the other team had to offer, and he definitely struggled in a lot of these games. In 16 games, he finished as the wide receiver 45 in PPR, 44.5 PPR, and 43 in standard, averaging 9.8 PPR points per game, 8.2 standard points per game, and 6.6 standard points per game, meaning from points per game perspective, Jerry Jeudy was the wide receiver 59 in PPR, 57.5 PPR, and 57 in standard. Now, I'm going to put some blame on the Jerry Jeudy down season. Maybe it was because they didn't have a real training camp last year because of the coronavirus. Maybe it's because they didn't have preseason. But at the end of the day, Jerry Jeudy struggled immensely with holding on to the football. He had some of the highest drop rates at the wide receiver position. This motherfucker dropped the ball 8 times last year. 0.5 times per game he's dropping the ball, 7th at wide receiver. His catch rate was 46.0%, 106th at the wide receiver position. That is not very good, right? That sounds very scary that a wide receiver drafted inside the top 15 in the NFL draft, looked at unanimously basically as the number 1 overall wide receiver in the 2020 draft class, he struggled. He was so bad. But then you can also take into account that the target quality rating for Mr. Jerry Jeudy was 4.2, number 102 wide receiver. His catchable target rate, 62.8%, number 105 at the wide receiver position. So a lot of the blame can be put on Jeudy dropping the ball, sure. But a lot of the blame can also be put at the quarterback, at Mr. Drew Lock. And now this year, the question is, who's going to be the quarterback of the Denver Broncos? Is it going to be Drew Lock? Is going to be Teddy Bridgewater? And with a lot of these reports that Aaron Rodgers is not too happy being in Green Bay, could it be Aaron Rodgers? Now, those are all questions for a later date, but what we can see from last season is that Jerry Jeudy was heavily involved in this offense, and if he sees a heavy workload like this in 2021, a heavy target share, that we could see him ending up really bouncing back in 2021. He had 113 targets last year, 7.1 per game, ranking 21st at the wide receiver position, only 52 receptions on 113 targets, ranking 51st at the wide receiver position, 856 receiving yards, 30th at wide receiver for just 3 total touchdowns. So Jerry Jeudy basically had a complete and utter fucking disaster. A disaster of a rookie season. And with the talent that this guy has, you can easily see a way that he is going to bounce back and bounce back in a big way to potentially finish as a top 20 wide receiver. With the addition of Courtland Sutton being back, that means that Jerry Jeudy won't necessarily be the first option. He won't necessarily be being covered by the best corner on each team, and that could really open the door for this offense. I think regardless of who the quarterback is, I am very, very high, like Snoop Dogg, on Jerry Jeudy, but I think that I'll be even higher on him if Aaron Rodgers ends up going there. Next up, we got the quarterback of the video, and that is Joe Burrow, quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. Last year, his stats were not very good, but obviously only ended up in playing 10 games before he had that horrific injury later on in the season, finishing as quarterback number 25 in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues and quarterback 25 in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. From a points per game perspective, he finished as the quarterback 18 in 4-point and quarterback 19 in 6-point, averaging 17.4 4-point per passing touchdown points per game and 20 in 6-point per passing touchdown points per game. But what you can see out of this offense is going to be an extremely pass-heavy offense, and that's just not my opinion. The numbers that I have found completely back that statement up, back it up. Through the first 11 weeks of the season, when Joey B was the quarterback, obviously only played in 10 games because they had a bye in that stretch, the Bengals averaged 72 plays per game on offense. second highest at the NFL, matched with the Houston Texans. 43 pass plays per 60 minutes. First in the NFL, tied with the Dallas Cowboys. So many people talk up the Dallas Cowboys, and I do as well. Hey, they have all these great wide receivers. They have a great quarterback. They're going to be passing the ball a lot because their defense is fucking terrible. And guess what? We basically have the same exact version in the AFC. The AFC Cowboys, the Cincinnati Bengals. Sure, their quarterback is not Dak Prescott yet. We can project that Joe Burrow will be a great quarterback in the NFL. That's why he was drafted number 1 overall. Sure, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, as well as Titty Boy T. Higgins are not. They are not Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, as well as Michael Gallup. Maybe they haven't reached that point yet, but you can see a very big similarity between the two teams, and if the Cincinnati Bengals are throwing the ball at such a high rate, there is honestly no reason to not be very excited to be drafting Joe Burrow in 2021. From a numbers point of view, Joe Burrow threw 404 times last season, 40.4 times per game. 2,688 passing yards, and he threw 13 passing touchdowns, which is at a 3.2% rate. Passing touchdown rate is something that a lot of people sleep on when it comes to fantasy football, and it is one of the most important stats when it comes to quarterback touchdown rate. With running back, wide receiver, much less important, but with quarterback it is, because 5 is that sweet spot number. You're looking for that juicy 5% passing touchdown rate. If it's way lower than that, you can expect a supreme bounce back up closer to the 5 number if it's a good quarterback. And then if the number's like 7, 8, 9 potentially in some cases, you're like, wow, that is going to start plummeting back down earth. So I expect the touchdowns to be much higher this season, and I expect this to be a very pass-heavy offense in Cincinnati. I don't think people really understand how much potential Joe Burrow has in 2021, and it also speaks to be the fact that no one's really talking about Joe Burrow's legs. Sure, they're talking about how he got hurt, but they're not talking about how he can maneuver his way up the field by running the ball. He didn't really run the ball all that much early on the season, but you could see as the season kept on going on, he was more comfortable running out of the pocket and trying to gain yards with his legs, and that is something that you look forward to in fantasy football because you just get free points when they run the ball, because in most leagues, it is 25 passing yards to get 1 point. But Joe Burrow only has to run the ball 10 yards to get 1 point, so that's an extra added bonus for a guy like Joe Burrow, who I think can really increase his rushing volume in 2021, and his passing volume should stay at a record too damn high. So we are about to go into the next player, but before we get into it, make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button if you have ended up enjoying thus far. I hope you've liked this video. I've been having a great time talking about these players. So back into it. Next player, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now I know there are going to be so many people, maybe even you in the comment section, you watching this video, who got burned, who got absolutely demolished by drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round of your draft in 2020. Clyde Edwards-Helaire got talked up for good reason, right? He was a first-round draft pick. He's going on to the Cincinnati Bengals, which is not the Cincinnati Bengals, going on to the Kansas City Chiefs, which is one of the most high-octane offenses in the NFL. This seems like the perfect scenario. But it wasn't necessarily perfect because he struggled at points. He finished as the running back 22 in PPR, 22.5 PPR, and 22 in standard, playing in 13 games. Sure, that's not a bad season, but when you're drafting him in the top 10, some people drafting him as a top 5 player overall, he completely was a bust in that case, averaging 13.5 PPR points per game, 12.2 half PPR points per game, and 10.8 standard points per game, meaning from a points per game perspective, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the running back 23 in PPR, 24.5 PPR, tied with Melvin Gordon, and 26 in standard. Helaire had 181 carries last season, 13.9 per game, ranking 17th at the running back position. He had 803 rushing yards, as well as 55 targets, 36 receptions for 297 receiving yards, and 5 total touchdowns on the season. If you expect the Kansas City Chiefs to be a great offense again, which I do, and you get the discount, that means that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not a top 10 pick. He's not even a top 24 pick in a majority of leagues. So you're getting this guy inside of the 3rd round. You're getting him potentially, he's not going to fall into the 4th round, but you're getting him in the 3rd round with a lot of upside because he's on a team that is going to be scoring as much as the Kansas City Chiefs that should be able to run the ball out later in games, and their offensive line has been completely rebuilt. They demolished the offensive line after Pat Mahomes was getting assaulted behind the offensive line by the Tampa Bay defenders all fucking game long in the Super Bowl. They rebuilt it all, and they have a new strong offensive line that is going to look to protect the short king in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his biggest glaring issue is the size of the lad. The guy's only 5'7", 207 pounds, so he's not a big bruiser back who's going to be able to, on the 1-yard line, every single time bulldoze through a bunch of defenders and walk his way into the end zone like a guy like Derrick Henry can. But you're not expecting Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be Derrick Henry. You're drafting him in the 3rd round. You're drafting him with the receiving upside that comes with Clyde Edwards-Helaire that is very important in building what could be a potential top 10 running back for fantasy football in 2021. Take out what happened last year. If you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year and he burned you because you drafted him in the top 8, then I am sorry, but you got to take that out, take it out to the trash, and don't remember that. Just, fucking do one of those things that they did in that movie thing from Men in Black, the movie, where you put that thing up to someone's face and it wipes your memory. Try to wipe your memory on what Clyde Edwards-Helaire did last year because of where you drafted him. He actually put up a pretty solid rookie season, but you're only mad about it because he screwed you over because you drafted him so highly. So take that out of your mind, draft him inside of the 3rd round, and you are going to be very happy with the production that the Chiefs put up this year and with the production that Clyde Edwards-Helaire has, especially in the receiving game that I think we see get a nice uptick in 2021. Final player to be talking about in this video is a guy that I would argue already broke out, but I have made a video talking about breakouts before on my channel a couple of months ago, and people said that CeeDee Lamb's a breakout, so we're going to go with it. Wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb. The CeeDee Lamb hype is getting unreal because people are talking about drafting CeeDee Lamb over Amari Cooper right now, which I would say is a little bit crazy. Now, I'm not saying that it's ultra crazy, you can't do it, but I think that Amari Cooper is still going to outscore CeeDee Lamb, but that doesn't mean that the Dallas Cowboys aren't going to be throwing the ball at an insane rate just like they did last season. CeeDee Lamb took the league by storm with Dak Prescott, right? He's tearing it up with Dak, and then Dak Prescott ends up getting hurt. Even with the injury, CeeDee Lamb is eating. Ben DiNucci's the quarterback. Andy Dalton's the quarterback. Gilbert is the quarterback, and it doesn't matter for CeeDee Lamb. It doesn't matter for CeeDee Lamb because of the amount of talent that the guy has. He was still getting fed, even when they were playing terrible. So imagine what's going to happen now. The Dallas Cowboys defense is still bad. The offense is still going to have to throw the ball a million times a game. Imagine the upside CeeDee Lamb now has with Dak Prescott. I still think Amari Cooper is the better pick over him, and they're going in similar positions, but that does not mean that if Amari Cooper's off the board, you can't take CeeDee Lamb around the same range. By the time you're drafting in August, CeeDee Lamb may be getting drafted ahead of him in most drafts. He had 109 targets last year, CeeDee Lamb. 6.8 per game. 24th at wide receiver. He had a grand total of 74 receptions, 23rd at wide receiver, 935 receiving yards, and 6 total touchdowns. He finishes the wide receiver 24 in full and half PPR, and the wide receiver number 20 in standard, averaging 13.2 PPR points per game, 10.9 half PPR points per game, and 8.6 standard points per game. Meaning, from a points per game perspective, CeeDee Lamb was the wide receiver 35 in PPR, 34 in half PPR, and 32 in standard. The reason why we see the numbers finish pretty low in a points per game perspective is because he was so up and down. Because he'll have these big games, right, with Dak at the beginning of the year, and then it started to slow down a little bit. And then he has big games, and then it slows down because of the quarterback play. But now the quarterback play in Dallas is going to be much more consistent. And Mike McCarthy is not the greatest of head coaches, but he knows how to do an offense somewhat okay, somewhat good enough to score a bunch of points in every single game. If you guys remember last year, every single game the Dallas Cowboys were in with Dak Prescott under center was a fucking boat race, where both these teams are firing points back and forth at each other, and it was just beautiful to watch. Sure, watching the defense was disgraceful. The Cowboys defense couldn't have stopped me. I could have lined up as a wide receiver, and I would have broke a DB's ankles and scored a tutty myself. Not really, because they're NFL-level cornerbacks, but it just looked so bad. It seemed like the defense was down tremendous, and it seems like that's going to be the exact same thing. Because sure, Nick, they drafted all of these cornerbacks. I know. They drafted all these players on defense. They built up a whole new defense. They tried to draft all these things. But you want to know how long it takes for a defensive player to develop in the NFL? It's going to take a while. And like half those picks will probably end up being busts. Be completely terrible. So it's going to take a while. And Dak Prescott is just going to have to use his arm to sling the rock so many times game in, game out, that there's a way that Cooper, Gallup, and Lamb every single week have very good games. Gallup will probably be the odd man out most weeks, but I really do believe CeeDee Lamb has top 10 potential, and I'm happily drafting that guy inside of the 3rd round. So thank you guys all so much for watching, or maybe even in the late 2nd round, which seems like that's where he's going right now. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you did end up enjoying me and you are new to watching me, make sure that you follow me on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well. I would really appreciate it. Let me know what you guys think about these 2nd-year breakouts. Did I miss on anyone? If you have any questions down below in the comments, I will happily answer all of you guys. So thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. Stay safe. Happy Tuesday. I believe it is. Yes, it is Tuesday. And I'll see you guys tomorrow on Wednesday with another video. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Goodbye.